Hey there, everybody. Dr. Evan Hirsch here with another video. I hope you're doing well today. So today we're going to be talking about the 4 reasons why you have adrenal fatigue. But before we do that, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Evan Hirsch. I am the fatigue doc, and I'm on a mission to help 1 million people resolve their fatigue. And I'm doing this through my course, my best-selling book, as well as my one-on-ones with me, my health coach, and my nervous system retraining coach. You can learn more all about this at fixyourfatigue.com and check out the links below. And please stay till the end. I got some special tips for you today. And like this video, subscribe it so that you can help me help 1 million people resolve their fatigue. And by liking, subscribing, and commenting, you're actually making this video more available to people so that more people can get the help that they need. So let's jump in. So what are the 4 causes of adrenal fatigue? So let's first talk about what the adrenal gland is and what adrenal fatigue is. So the adrenal gland is a little triangular gland, sits on top of the kidneys and is responsible for producing stress hormones. So it manages the stress in our bodies. It produces things like adrenaline if we're running away from a saber-toothed tiger, cortisol for managing insulin and blood sugars and the immune system and our get up and go in the morning, which is one of the reasons why you're probably tired. It also will produce sex hormones as you get older and your testicles or your ovaries stop producing them. So very important gland, probably the most important gland that we have in the body, producing so many of these hormones. Oh, and it regulates blood pressure and salt balance as well with aldosterone. So very important gland, okay? So it is managing stress in the body. So the 4 causes are the 4 stressors that you can encounter in this life. So these stressors can be mental, they can be emotional, they can be physical, or they can be spiritual. So let's dive into each one of these and talk about what those actually are, okay? Because what ends up happening is basically there's a stressor that comes into your life, into your body, into your world, and your body is dealing with it in the way that it can, mainly with the adrenal gland, and it uses up its resources. Okay, you no longer have enough cortisol, body gets overwhelmed by the amount of stress that is around, and then consequently, then you get all of the consequences of having adrenal fatigue or or more accurately, adrenal gland dysfunction or fatigue from adrenal gland dysfunction, okay, where the gland is just not able to do what you need it to do. So mental stressors can be anything, and I'll group kind of like mental and emotional together because it's everything that you're dealing with on a regular basis that can be stressful. And this can be things that have happened in the past. So these can be things like abuse, rejection from a peer group, things that are called ACEs or adverse childhood events. So things that have kind of gone wrong in your life that your body is kind of perseverating on and your brain keeps thinking on, and you're kind of stuck in a little bit of a loop when it comes to your emotions and your memory, which is your limbic system. And the challenges that present themselves cause stress on your life, on your body, repeatedly over and over again, which ends up draining your adrenal gland and causing adrenal gland dysfunction and making you tired. One of the reasons why you become tired. Okay. It could be relationship stress. It could be stress at work. It could be intense mental activity. So, if you're studying really hard for exams and then taking exams and then you're kind of wiped out, that is causing an effect on your adrenal gland and adrenal gland dysfunction. So that's mental and emotional. Spiritual can also include whether you're living your purpose in this life. For some people, it has to do with some energy flow, if there's energy blocks in the body, and this is one of the reasons why acupuncture can sometimes help. Then the physical ones, which we're going to spend most of our time on today, is all about the toxicities. So when I talk about the causes of fatigue in general, I talk about 33 different causes that can be broken up into deficiencies and toxicities. Now, when we're talking about adrenal gland dysfunction or adrenal fatigue, that's one of those deficiencies, and it is caused by the toxicities. So these toxicities include, when we're talking about the physical stressors, we're talking about toxicities from heavy metals, toxicities from chemicals, molds, infections, allergies. So all of these things are going to cause stress on the human organism, and we'll go into more detail in a second. Stress on the human organism that ends up compromising the adrenal gland, as well as other hormones, nutrients, mitochondrial function, etc. But for this video, we're just talking about how it affects the adrenal gland and the stress that ends up happening. One thing I didn't mention about cortisol is that cortisol, which is that main adrenal hormone, also is our main anti-inflammatory. So you've probably heard of cortisone, you've probably heard of prednisone. These are all derivatives of cortisol. So if you think about it, inflammation kind of causes a lot. I mean, inflammation is a natural process. I don't want to get off on a tangent here. It's a natural process that's very important. If you break a leg, inflammation happens, you get redness, swelling, all that stuff to the area. It fixes it over time, right? But what happens if you get chronic inflammation? Okay, where basically the inflammation is stuck in an on position. Okay, you end up causing this sort of dysregulation. This is what happens with all these toxicities. They cause chronic inflammation in the body, which ends up causing pain and dysfunction and your fatigue. Okay, fatigue and other symptoms, often mystery symptoms as well, weird symptoms that your regular doctor can't understand and can't figure out. So let's talk about heavy metals. So, for example, mercury. Over 100,000 pounds of mercury are dumped in our oceans every single year. Okay, most of us have had silver fillings, aka amalgam fillings, which is half silver and half mercury. Every time you bite down, it releases mercury vapor into your mouth. You swallow it and you get mercury. This is one of the reasons why I had mercury toxicity. You know, I had fatigue for 5 years, and it just about destroyed my life, destroyed my business, destroyed my relationships. And I got over it going through the 4-step program that I developed called the Fix Your Fatigue program. And I got over it, and I've helped thousands of people at this point, and that's why I'm on this mission to help 1 million people resolve their fatigue. So heavy metal toxicity, there's lead that's found in 80% of all lipsticks and cosmetics. So a lot of toxicity that we're not aware of that we need to remove. Okay, chemicals, 84,000 different chemicals we're exposed to on a regular basis that are most of those have not been examined correctly and assessed correctly for safety. Okay, so pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, things like plastics. These are a lot of the things, the toxins that we see on a regular basis. Gasoline additives, stuff like that. And then there's mold. So half of the building in first world countries using drywall and particle board and stuff like that, which is just fodder for mold. So half of those buildings in the first world countries have mold or have water damage, and most of those have mold. So this is a huge problem, and this causes everything from neuropathy, so numbness and tingling, pain, cramping in the calves, sleep problems, mood issues, chronic fatigue, sinus issues, skin rashes. It causes so many different things, multiple chemical sensitivity, mast cell activation syndrome. So these are all major consequences. Now, what's important to remember as a side note is that nobody ever has just one cause of fatigue or one cause of adrenal fatigue or adrenal gland dysfunction. It's always a combination of those 33 causes that I mentioned. Okay, most of the people that I see have 20 or so causes of fatigue when I see them. Okay, so you have to remember, and what makes things even more challenging is that the causes of fatigue that you have are different than the causes of fatigue that your neighbor has. So if you have causes 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and they have 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, you're going to require very different treatments. Okay, this is the reason why it's so challenging to treat fatigue and why it's so important that you figure out exactly which causes you have so that with laser-like focus, you can go after those and you can resolve them. Okay, so that's mold. Then infections. We're seeing, the CDC a couple years ago jumped up from saying that Lyme was found in 30,000 people per year to now 300,000 people per year were acquiring it. So very important to look at a lot of these stealth infections and things like, do you have symptoms that traverse the body, so that move around the body, whether it's joint pain, muscle pain, or nerve pain? Does it move around the body every couple days, every couple weeks, every couple months, where it moves from one joint to the next or from one part of the body to the next? Do you have symptoms that come and go, where some days are better than others? So if you have those two things, then it's very possible that you have Borrelia, okay, which is the main Lyme infection. So if you have symptoms that move around the body as well as symptoms that come and go, it's very likely there's not very many things that cause that. So Borrelia might be an infection that you're affected with. And then if you're looking at something like Bartonella, which can cause body pain and neck pain and problem sleeping, anxiety, depression, pain on the bottom of the feet, usually misdiagnosed as plantar fasciitis, cramping in the calves or in the legs, usually at night, thyroid problems. I just had somebody else who had Bartonella. We got rid of her Bartonella and her thyroid problems went away. We were able to wean her off of her thyroid medication entirely. So if you have some of those symptoms, then you may have Bartonella. If you have sweating, either during the day or at night, every couple days, every couple weeks, every couple months, if you have shortness of breath, if you have problems sleeping, problems falling asleep, problems staying asleep, anxiety to the point of panic attacks, and depression to the point of suicidal thoughts, it's very possible that you have babesia. Babesia is another one of these infections that kind of travels together. If you have chronic sore throat, lymph nodes, and nonspecific fatigue, then you may have Epstein-Barr virus. If you've had COVID, and then you have subsequent fatigue, you may have post-viral fatigue. So all of these different infections, you can also have infections in the gut, whether it's bacteria or yeast that can be contributing. All of these can contribute to having to stress in the body, increase in inflammation, and draining the adrenal gland and causing adrenal gland fatigue. Okay, so that's heavy metals, chemicals, molds, infections, and then allergies. So the first four things that I talked about actually will increase your immune system's reactivity to things that it's taking in, such as foods and inhalants, things that are like pollens and grasses and stuff like that. So you'll end up getting more by having those toxicities in your body. You're going to end up getting more allergies. But the allergies themselves, because it's heightened immune system activation, they also increase inflammation, increase stress on the body, and drain the adrenal glands. Okay, which is why it's so important to avoid eating a lot of the foods that make you feel worse. And oftentimes we'll remove the top 10 food antigens or the food allergens that are commonly seen in people who have a hyperactive immune system from these toxicities, and they get so much better. Okay, so that's allergies. And then the last one is, parasites I'm going to include in infections because those can happen as well. And then chronic dental infections can be a big part of this. So if you've had root canals and other chronic dental infections, those are things that definitely have to be remedied as well. Because once again, they're causing inflammation and they're draining the adrenal gland and its ability to manage the inflammation in the body. Okay, so those are the four things. We talked about mental stress, emotional stress, spiritual stress, as well as the physical stressors. Okay, so in order to be successful at resolving your adrenal fatigue, you have to go after these causes and you have to remove them. So this may mean working with our nervous system retraining coach to reset your nervous system, to get your vagal system back in order so that you're living more in your parasympathetic nervous system instead of your sympathetic nervous system. So you're more being able to relax and heal and working through, not going back into the past and drudging up, any of these ACEs, any of these adverse childhood events, but understanding what's happening in your body and how to move forward in a positive way. Perhaps doing some limbic system retraining as well, doing some mindset work. Okay, to get really strong mentally, and then removing these toxicities, replacing any deficiencies that are present. And that's really the way. Going through my 4-step process is really the way that you're going to be most successful. So if you want to learn more about that, go to fixyourfatigue.com. If you learned something in this video, please give it a thumbs up, and so that, I guess that's liking it. Subscribe so you don't miss any more of these videos. And then please place a comment below so that you can help me help 1 million people resolve their fatigue. Because by doing those things, it helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and I really appreciate it. So more people can see it, and we can help people resolve their fatigue and achieve the best energy of their lives, because so much of our lives depend on having good energy. All right, thanks so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Oh, and don't forget to share this video if you learned something. All right, take care.